Hey guys, it's Jerry with RIDE88, and I'm gonna jump into something that I haven't really done before, and that is to do a review on a product that I just got. It's a press brake that I'm gonna add to my shop. It's a Titan T25 25-ton press brake by Langmuir Systems. I've purchased a couple other pieces of equipment from Langmuir in the past. I got a welding table, I think it's called the Arc Flat. And I also have one of their plasma tables. So far, everything that I've purchased from Langmuir, I have been happy with. This is probably the most complicated piece of equipment. It's a CNC press brake, so it's much heavier, a little bit more of a major piece of equipment, I guess you could say. But it's gonna complement our shop nicely if it does exactly what I hope it's going to do. The promise is that it's gonna give me that CNC back gauge that's going to be quick to make a part and shift all my bends and just go through each bend and then call up the next bracket, etc. So I'm gonna give this whole process of building it my review, kind of what I think of the assembly process, as well as what do I think of it. Ultimately, I'm not gonna do like a walkthrough tutorial of step-by-step how to install. It's gonna be more of a, you can watch me put it together, but I'm probably only gonna stop and talk about problems that I have, things that I run into that I think are worth talking about. So come along with us as we install this and put it together, and I hope you learned something from it. All right, this is just a quick disclaimer. I'm gonna go through my whole process on how I put my Titan together, and the first step in this process is getting it off of the pallet and putting it onto its stand. And this is definitely the part of the project that is the most sketchy, and I would highly suggest that if you're not comfortable doing this process, don't do it. I would almost not suggest doing it anyways, because there is a chance that things could go wrong doing this process. It is what I saw in the manual, was to use an engine hoist to lift the machine off of the pallet, and I had to really do some thinking and measuring. Ultimately, I believe that a safer way to go about doing this would be to use the forklift method. For me, that wasn't an option. I did successfully get it together, and so you're welcome to watch what I did. But just as a disclaimer, I am not recommending you do it this way. I'm just showing you how I did it. So it's at your own risk, and enjoy. All right, so it looks like I've got this on 2 pallets. So one of the first challenges is to get this off of the pallet. I'm gonna be using an engine hoist, so I'm thinking I'm gonna lift this up on one side, up on the other, get the pallet out, get the engine hoist underneath here. So we'll see how this goes. Well, ran into my first issue right off the bat. I need to get this off of the pallet and onto the stand, and so opened up the stand box, and we've got 2 right-hand base stands. There's supposed to be a left and a right. I got 2 rights, so that's not gonna work. So I'm gonna have to return this and put Langmuir Systems customer service to the test here and see how long it takes them to get me a new one of these out so I can finish this project. Okay, the new leg finally arrived, so we're ready to put together this press brake. And thankfully, Langmuir was pretty quick to react on it. It was right before the holidays, so I've been sitting on this for about a week and a half, waiting for shipping to come back online and for Langmuir to get back into the office after taking a little bit of a break and whatever they have at the end of the year. So here we are. I'm excited to finally get this done. So the next step, I'm gonna pull this off of the pallet, and one good thing about having to sit and wait was it gave me time to think about how to get the pallet out from underneath the press brake. And so there's a little bit of a multi-step procedure that I had to think through and do some measuring and figure it out. There isn't anything that is in the paperwork that makes it clear how you're supposed to do this with a engine hoist. So I'm using an engine hoist as they recommended, but you kind of have to be creative with how you approach it if you're going to use an engine hoist. So we'll see. I don't know if this is going to work. It might be a horrible failure. It might not even be a good idea, but this is how I'm gonna do it, so you can watch what I do and hopefully it helps somebody out. But it's what I have and it's what Langmuir recommends, so we'll see how it goes. All right, so I got the jack into position. Currently it's not holding any weight. It's still floating below the press brake, and it's time to take all this metal off of here. All right, we're getting closer. Now I can drop all these jacks. Everything is pretty secure now. Ooh. We might have a little bit of an issue here that I didn't think about. This might have to spread apart a little bit. Dang it, man. Everywhere you turn, there's like a issue with what you got to do, because you can't get under that with that. Shoot. All right, well, that's going to be a new problem that I got to solve here. All right, there it is. We got the jack stands all pulled. The engine hoist is off and we're freestanding. So happy times. Now we just need to assemble all the rest of the components on here and start using it and see how it goes. That's nice. The bags are all numbered. All right, we went back and looked on the video and bag 12 was missing 2 bolts. It's supposed to come with 4. It only came with 2. So I don't have the bolts to mount that. So I'm gonna go look around the shop and see if I have any bolts. So be right back. Not exactly the same bolt. Hopefully it's gonna be okay, but it's what I have. So I'm gonna bolt it together with this and we'll see if there's any issues there. I doubt it. This part's pretty greasy, so I went ahead and put on gloves. So these bolts are pretty tiny, and it did feel like that one stripped. It kept spinning, and I'm a little nervous to spin it anymore because I'm afraid it's just going to completely strip. I may need to test it, and if it doesn't, I'll just tap it with a little bit bigger bolt. But these just seem really small for holding material weight. the brackets go in here. We'll see. And maybe I don't understand it yet, the mechanics of it. But it seems like a pretty small little bolt to do a pretty big job. And again, this one, these just spinning. It's not even, it's just stripped. It's barely going into the threads. Doesn't make sense. I might put some different bolts in there because I don't trust those. You can see those last few threads broke off. It's only catching about 5 threads on this little bolt. So how that's supposed to support the material weight, that just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm gonna see if I have a better bolt than this. So just to be sure that I'm not using the wrong bolts, I double checked the instructions. It does say bag 8. It's a 1/2 inch 1024 bolt. Basically, you've got about a 1/4 inch thick piece of steel here that a 1/2 inch bolt is going through with a chamfered receiving hole, so you're losing a little bit more thread. So it's only catching about an 1/8 inch of thread, and it's just not enough. So I'm gonna put it all together and see how much space I have. I feel like there should be plenty. Definitely replacing these bolts. These are inadequate. So that's gonna work pretty good. Looks like I have plenty of room for a more robust bolt, so. All right, these bolts are working a lot better. I think I'm going to upgrade all of these bolts later, but for now, they'll be fine just to temporarily hold these supports in place. There doesn't seem to be any reason those larger headed bolts aren't gonna, or that they would create any kind of an issue, so I think we're good. All right, so the instructions are telling me that I need bearings from bag number 5. I only have a bag 9 with bearings, and it looks like there's plenty of bearings in here to do more than just this. So I'm thinking it might be mislabeled, but we'll see. The bearings from bag 9 fit, and I'm gonna just go with it because I don't know where else I'm supposed to find bearings. All right, well, we've run into a problem with this bag right here. So the instructions say for bag 22, they should be 2 1/4 inches, but actually they measure only 2 inches. So they aren't long enough. We're getting 2 inches there, and they're coming up a 1/4 inch short. They don't go through the part they're supposed to. So they're the incorrect bolts in bag 22. So I'm kind of at a stopping point on that. I think I might have some different bolts I can use around my shop, but again, kind of another funny mistake that they're making here. And I think Langmuir needs to get their parts dialed in as far as what they're supplying, because it's kind of frustrating to get the wrong stuff, and then you have to stop or call them and wait for new parts to come. So that one's wrong. I also discovered the bearing bag. So the bag that the bearings came in, actually if you read, it says HHCS 1/4 inch by 2 1/4 inch 2. So it's not even the right sticker. So it's improperly labeled bag, but it does have the bearings in it. So at least I have the parts I need, but it was confusing because I was looking for the correct bearings. I think these must be the correct bearings. All right, I'm short bolts again. We got bag 16 here, and it comes with 4 couplers and 16 bolts, and we received 12 bolts. So I'm 2 bolts short on this. So again, seems like a lot of issues with how many bolts we're getting, the correct bolts being packed, etc. So anyway, I'm gonna have to call Langmuir and try and get those bolts as well. So hopefully we don't run into any more of these. This seems kind of crazy, but again, I'm missing another bit. So the limit switch is supposed to come with 4 limit switch plates. I only received 2, so I'm too short on the limit switch plate. So I can't complete these parts here. And this is the step I'm on right now, where you have to put the plate and the limit switch. And so yeah, I don't have those plates, so I'm missing 2 plates. Come on, Langmuir, help me out. I don't know if you can see it, but the 2 holes, they're just slightly not aligning on this side. No matter how much we twist it, we can't get it to align. So at this point, the only way I see making it happen, we've got the bolts on the right. I have one up top and one up down at the bottom, and both of those went in. It was a little tight still. And then on the left side here, both top and bottom, they're not aligning. Even though the bolts on the right are loosened, we can't twist or shimmy it. It's just not gonna happen. So we're gonna have to do some kind of modification. I don't see any other way around getting it to happen. I just bolted up the other side and have the same problem. I can get 2 bolts and then the other 2 holes completely don't align. So I don't know why these things are so off. It's really such major components. We're talking about at least a 1/4 inch thick steel plating here. And then this is basically the back of the mill that's tapped. I'm not gonna mess with that, that's for sure. The only way I see getting this to work is grinding out these holes so that they'll align. But I mean, we're talking a 1/16 inch off. It's maybe more. It's got a substantial misalignment. So that's pretty bad, because these things need to all be, they have a tolerance to them, I'm sure, as far as how they should align vertically. If we're supposed to grind things out, I'm calling Langmuir on this one. I don't think I'm gonna mess with it until I get a word from them, but yeah, pretty frustrating. All right, I just got back from speaking with Langmuir. I spoke with Jake, and he had kind of walked me through how to fix this situation. So I'm gonna show you guys what they told me. Obviously, they have a little bit of bugs to work out with this machine. Mostly, it seems like this back gauge has been the issue, and all the assembly process having little things, either bolts missing, wrong marks on the bags, etc. Sounds like they do all of their bagging of their bolts and parts in the US. So I plan to let them know everything that I ran into, and hopefully it'll help them improve their process on their end. But in the end, nothing has stopped me from moving forward, because luckily I have a lot of bolts available to me that I'm able to just go in and solve my own problem for now. But I will get all the correct bolts from Langmuir and replace them and get it all correct. I just want to get this built at this time. So I'm going to show you what I have to do to these holes. So let's take a look at this part. So these are the holes that are the issue, that we're not aligning with the press. And because the press is a good inch or so thick steel with tapped holes, we don't want to mess with that. The recommendation from Langmuir was to basically make these holes bigger so that I have a little more alignment freedom. So I'm going to go through and drill them out. I'll probably drill out 3 of them and leave 1 for accuracy on the current hole position. And then because of that, I'm a little concerned that we're going to lose a 90-degree alignment. So then I'll just go in there with some tools and make sure that I'm 90 degrees and then tighten it down. So that's the step we're going to do right now. So you can see that hole on the right looks to me like a good almost 32nd to possibly a 1/16 inch off as far as being on the same plane where they should be. So that's part of the problem. All right, so I've got these holes adjusted, and for the most part, I just drilled them out a little bigger. I left this one untouched, and that was drilled. This one was drilled. That one I drilled, and then I also slightly elongated it in the direction that it was most out of alignment. So after measuring, I determined that these are fine. The holes on these were all symmetrical and square to themselves. But the holes on the machine, the tapped holes, those are the ones that have inaccuracy. So basically have to modify this one to match the inaccuracy of the tapped holes on the press. So hopefully these bolt right on. Let's see how it goes. All right, got it. It's nice to finally be working back on the machine, getting these parts together. All right, this next step is to wire up the electronics for the back gauge. And for some reason, all of these cables, Langmuir is using two different labeling methods. One is this long code here, and the other is X1, R1, X2, R2. And so they don't have the X and R labeling on these cables. So I'm gonna put it on there because it's really confusing having to switch back and forth between the two different types of language. So I want this to say that code, which was what they used when you're lining up the motor. So anyway, there's two different ways that they're going about labeling these cables, and it's kind of confusing. All right, we got the moment of truth. I think we got everything hooked up. So the last step is to do the squaring of the gantry, which requires me to power on. So here we go. All right, we're up. That took a good 2 minutes at least. All right, I'm gonna study this for a minute, and then when I'm comfortable with pushing some buttons, I'll be back. All right, pretty good news. I got the machine running and have been able to jog it around a bit. The only bummer is that it looks like the back gauge is moving unevenly. So when it goes in the up and down movement, the one side of the back gauge is going fast and the other side is going slower, and so it binds, and it's not going up and down like it's supposed to evenly. So to rule out whether it was an assembly issue or a computer issue, I switched the cables to see what would happen and ran it, and the opposite side then pulled faster. So that tells me that it's something happening on the computer side of things. All right, if you watch, if I'm gonna go down, only the left side seems to be going up and down. And you hear it binding. So it's not moving evenly. So that's where I'm at. I'm gonna call Langmuir and we'll see what they tell me. I'm sure there's something that they'll know. So call them tomorrow. So I called Langmuir about the back gauge and how it was lifting uneven, and it turns out that it's a known issue, and they have a whole document that was prepared that they gave me, and everybody can access it, so I'll throw a link to that. What I had to end up doing was the module that you drop inside of the box up here, and the electronics that you drop inside there has switches on it, and that's the back gauge module, and those little switches were not all synchronized, so you just have to flip a switch or two, depending on how incorrectly it was programmed. So super easy fix, but I did have to pull it back out and then flip the switch, and then everything worked. So I'm stoked that at least it was an easy fix. Okay, I've got the machine set up in my shop where I want it. I've already played around with the computer enough to understand how to do a sequence of bends, and I'll show you how I'm going through that, and also show you the bending process. I've got a series of bends that I need to do for some brackets, and I'll take you along with me as I bend through those, and you can see how the machine's working and how I'm interacting with the back gauge. I've added this little piece of wood to the supports. I put a series of lines on this piece of wood, and it lets me kind of line up everything 90 degrees to the die. So that's pretty cool. I don't know if this is the final way I'll go about doing this, and I'm still learning quite a bit about what the best practices are for press brake use. So here's the interface, and the two tabs that I have mainly been working with are the run and the create bend. So run is going to run your program, and create bend, you're going to create multiple bends that you're going to place into programs, and that's going to run your back gauge and also how far your die is going to press in to make different bends. You have your desired bend angle, angle compensation. I have had to play with the angle compensation already quite a bit, even though I have the dies placed into the machine like they're preloaded into the computer. And so I have called up those correct dies, but even still it seems to be coming up about 9 degrees to 12 degrees shy of where it needs to bend. I haven't had one bend yet be accurate to whatever I called out. So maybe there's something I need to preset. I'm not sure why that is, but it is no problem to just kind of vet out what the bend needs to be, tweak it a little bit, just keep adding to the underbend until it gets right where it needs to be, and then it repeats no problem. You have your back gauge position here down below, and it's pretty straightforward, and so far kind of liking just the control this is giving me. Once I've created a bend sequence, I load it into program here. If you hit load into program, it's going to place it into the program that you have called up. Right now I have decked strap tab pulled up, and so it's going to run through this 1, 2, 3 step sequence. So let's take a look at what that looks like on the machine, and I'll run through some parts and you can kind of get a look at how it's working. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run this program. And the back gauge is going to find its position. So bend 1 should be in queue. That's looking good. You can kind of double check how square I am by putting in this square up against the die. And that's what I like about this piece of wood. It just kind of stays right there. So then when I go to start it, it's going to hold it there. Now it's in there tight. It's got a little delay, and then it's going to run that bend. And then run the next bend. So I guess I can adjust the delay that happens when I double pump the pedal to initiate the bend. You can adjust that, you can make it 0, so it goes a lot quicker. But for now I kind of like it. It gives me time to think before I make my bend, because a few times I caught myself basically either pulled up the wrong program, like, oh wait, that's not in the right spot on the middle. So you can see this is sitting pretty square. There is just a teeniest bit of rock maybe a 30-second out of square, but overall, once that's tightened down, it's gonna be perfectly stable. So, all right, let's call up the next bend. I think we'll do the upright. So you can see I have 2 bends in that series, and then I'll go ahead and hit run program. It's gonna give me the option to select decked upright, and then it's going to tell me it's gonna run through everything in the order that I created them. So, yep, so we'll go ahead and hit yes. Overall, this Titan press brake's working really great. It's doing exactly what I need. I can do repeatable bends and make sure that everything is consistent in our production. For what we need, I don't see this being underpowered or not enough press brake. It's wider than I need for any of the bends that I can think of at the moment, but it gives us an ability to expand to bigger pieces in the future. The price point, honestly, it's pretty good compared to what I've seen out there. There are other options, but not with the CNC back gauge, which is really the big sweet part about this, is that you can just go from bend to bend. Instead of having to set everything up and run through one bend on everything, you can actually complete a part, set it aside, go to the next part. And that's a really cool experience. I think in the end it speeds up the process. Time will tell overall what I think of it, but initially it feels good. If I see any issues with things breaking or I don't know, any kind of concern about anything in the future, I'll just update it. But ultimately, I don't see anything catastrophic that would go wrong. You never know. The ease of use is definitely, I would give that 2 thumbs up from my perspective. It's definitely easy. It didn't take me more than probably an hour to kind of figure out the way to program it. There was a little bit of confusion, but I did not read any manuals. I just played with the program and kind of got familiar. And within an hour, I had it figured out and was able to start programming bends. So yeah, I think intuitively, it's really pretty good for that. I would say that when you get your press, expect to, if your experience is anything like mine, I had enough missing parts or incorrectly bagged parts or mislabeled parts. Obviously my stand was missing right off the bat. When I opened it up, I only had 2 right-hand floor stand parts and I needed a left and a right. So it's a pretty substantial cast iron piece. And so probably wherever they're manufacturing these, that's where they bagged or they boxed 2 right-hand components instead of giving me a left and a right. So it stopped me right off the bat. That along with some bolts missing and etc. Like I just said, bags mismarked. I had to reach back out to Langmuir. I do have a lot of bolts and parts around the shop that I was able to use to try to get the machine together, but I am still waiting on a few pieces to pull out what I put in there and then put what their factory bolts and parts back on the machine so everything is exactly as factory supplied. So just be aware that you'll probably have some of that. Hopefully they'll watch this video. I also, just reaching out, let them know that there was enough stuff missing that I felt that they needed to have a little bit closer look at how their process of bagging parts. I guess I was talking to Sam at Langmuir and he said that they do all the bagging of parts in-house. So in other words, the bolts and the bearings and things like that are being numbered and bagged here in the USA. So that's something they have direct control over, so I would hope that that would be improved. It wasn't a lot. There's probably, just trying to remember, I think there was around 30 bags of parts, and I would say I had an issue on about 4 or 5 bags. And really for missing parts, I only had about 3 bags. I actually had the wrong parts or missing parts inside of them. I got it done. Look, that's all kind of in the past for me. And now I've got my machine up and running, and yeah, it seems to be running well. So like I said, I was hoping it would be as expected. It is as I expected it to be, and the functionality is well worth the money for what I need to do. Kind of excited to have this new piece of equipment to help with our shop efficiency and part repeatability and accuracy. So I'll go ahead and show you the parts that I've bent so far, and you can kind of look at them to see what you think about the quality of the bends. So thanks for watching this video. I hope it helped you out. And if you make some cool parts, with your machine. If you do end up getting one of these, I'd love to see what you make. If you have a different press brake that you love, it'd be really cool to just see maybe in the comments what press brake you think is like the best one for the kind of situation that I have here. Pretty happy with this one. So go make some cool stuff, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.